Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you all about the latest from Once Awake, Bridgeburner, out October 2nd as a self-release. This album has 10 tracks, 43 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. The first thing that I take from this record is how much this band has grown since the previous two records into this one. They didn't take steps forward. This is a leap forward for them as far as song composition is concerned, structure, and overall understanding of what it takes to put a record together. You don't need just 10 great songs. You need to build them in a way that they give life to the overall album, and they're more than just a collection of tracks. And I felt that finally with this record they were able to do that. And as you get into the album, the first thing you notice is the structure of the record, because it's very fluid, very dynamic. They didn't put too many songs or any songs at all that have a lot of similarities built into them in order for the record not to feel or sound repetitive. Even if there's songs that have similar structures or similar sound approaches, they're far enough apart from each other that you almost forget one by the time you get to the other. So the album is very dynamic, is very fluid, great structure overall, really engaging the listener with every single song. You feel re-energized with every single track. The soundscape on this record is really interesting because I was expecting it to be a lot more metalcore than what it is. It has a lot more of a groove influence than it does metalcore. Metalcore is still there, still plays a huge role in their sound and their approach, but I felt that overall this record had a lot more of a groove influence into their sound, or at least they merge those two worlds a lot better, and there's not necessarily one of them taking control of the overall record. They take turns from song to song and even within the songs themselves. But if there's one that's winning, in my opinion, is the groove side, because I just felt that it had a much stronger presence overall. But it's really even, it's very close, and the two really are really well matched throughout the record in order to provide a very balanced sound across every single song. Now within that sound, there are two elements that you have to address: the drums and guitars. The drums on this record are outstanding. The heaviness that they have, the power that they have, the strength that they have, they really dominate the record. They really push every single song forward and give them volume. It gives it presence. It gives it heaviness. It's definitely one of the elements of heaviness on the record, the drums are, with the vocals. But the drums from a sound perspective, they're really there. They're the backbone. They're the foundation upon which everything else is built upon. The guitars have a lot more melody. They have that groove side of things that really alternate styles, alternate approaches, and definitely give the songs the up and down roller coaster ride within the tracks themselves that is needed in order for the record to be dynamic, in order for the songs to be very dynamic. But the drums are very consistent from top to bottom. A lot of heaviness, a lot of presence, definitely the backbone of this album as far as sound is concerned. Then when you get into the vocals, definitely you're going to get clean vocals, harsh vocals. That's the staple with this band, so there's nothing different to say about that on this album. They pretty much did everything that they have done in the past. But I really like what they've done here. They didn't go with the more traditional aspect of using one style in the verses, a different style in the chorus. No, they really mismatched, and they went with songs that had predominantly harsh vocals and then using the clean vocals more as a balancing act in order to level out what they wanted out of the vocal performance. But overall, from a vocal perspective, the album is very balanced, very linear. They use these two elements, but they use them in a very smart way in order for the record not to be repetitive. Or at least to me, I didn't feel like I knew exactly where I was going to get from a vocal perspective with every single song, because every track took a different approach, a similar but yet different approach, which keeps the listener engaged, it keeps the listener on its toes, and doesn't allow the album from a vocal perspective to be repetitive, which is something that I'm always concerned when you put a band that merges these two genres of groove and metalcore together. There's always a tendency for the vocals to start to be perhaps a little bit more repetitive across 10 tracks, or at least start to feel like you've heard that style or you heard that mixture before. With this album, I really didn't get that sense. I felt like they did a wonderful job understanding what the track needed from a vocal perspective and then going with that, regardless if it was clean or harsh vocal. So overall, I really enjoyed the vocal performance on this record. Overall, this is their best album to date. This is, like, there's not even a discussion point as far as that is concerned. This is their best release, and I'm extremely surprised that their best album to date is a self-release, that they didn't have a label to distribute this record. It just boggles the mind, because when you listen to this album, the quality of the sound, how balanced it is, the quality of the tracks, the quality of the construction of the album really feels like a whole record is put together and not just a collection of songs that they've been working on for the past 2 years. All of these things are extremely well done, very professionally delivered, and that is a surprise when you look at being a self-release. At least to me, it was a little bit of a surprise when you look at a self-release. Now, as far as favorite tracks are concerned, I want to start off with Bridgeburner, heavy and aggressive from the go. From the moment it starts, it goes. It doesn't stop. The drums are absolutely relentless, which is something that you're going to get throughout this record more often than not. The guitars create this larger wall of sound because they attach themselves to how heavy the drums are. The guitars are not necessarily as heavy as the drums because they're coming in and out with melody and grooviness, but when you put all these elements together, it really creates this big presence, this big wall, this big volume that's coming at you. The vocals are the perfect outlet for the aggression that this song has. The guitars, like I said, have a lot of melodic undertones. They're coming in and out, but the heaviness sometimes of the drum stomps that melody, or it covers, or it tries to hide that melody. So the melody of the guitars almost becomes a layer within the overall texture of the song. It's still there, it's just not as predominant as that heaviness, as that volume that the drums and guitars together really create. Because the drums are really leading the way and they're demolishing as they lead that way. The solo on this track adds melody, but it doesn't really break the song. I didn't feel like this is a solo that breaks away from everything else that is happening. It perhaps brings a little bit of that guitar melody to the forefront that was hidden up until that point as one of the layers of the overall structure and the overall texture of the track. Great construction, great song. Next, Eyes Shut, once again, killer drums. This is going to be pretty much the signature thing across every single track on this record is killer drums. Overall, a much groovier track. I felt that this song had a lot of more groove elements. At least they were allowed to move to the forefront a lot more than Bridgeburner, and that gives this song a different vibe, a different feel. The vocals push the track forward. As in Bridgeburner, I felt that the drums were pushing the track forward. In this song, I feel like the vocals are really the conductor of sound and pushing the track from one point to the next. The solo has an old school feel, which to me was a surprise. I was not expecting that. It really breaks with the track. It doesn't pull anything from any other portion of the song. It has almost a classic old school heavy metal feel to it, but because it's very short, it doesn't break the dynamic of the song. It's there, it creates an impact, it creates melody, but because it's so short, it doesn't break the track. If it was a little bit longer, it would really break the dynamic and the fluidity of the song. It's not the case because, like I said, very short, very compact. Now, the song has this onslaught feel of heaviness that's coming to it. It's methodic at times, it's heavy, it's groovy, but overall this is a very demolishing track that has a lot of groove elements to it, and the closing breakdowns are absolutely epic. It just adds heaviness, it adds that sense of just demolishing everything. Like, you got that sense up until that point, but it reaches that climax as it reaches the end of the track. So I love this song because it always feels like it's growing, it's building as you're moving through it all the way to the end. Last but not least, 585, one of my favorite, if not my favorite song on this album. I love the build-up at the start of the song. It really gets this feeling of coming from nothing to something. I love that experience that it has. Great alternating tempos in this song. This is a song that doesn't move at one speed. It alternates speeds depending on where you are within the track. It makes it a little bit more aggressive and brutal that way, but still keeping a lot of melody built into the song. Perhaps one of the more melodic tracks on the album, and that's really obvious once you reach the chorus, because the chorus is super melodic, not only from a musical perspective, but also from a vocal perspective. You get a little bit more clean vocals. It makes the chorus a little bit more hooky, a little bit more catchy, easier to grasp, easier to digest, making the overall song a little bit more interesting from that perspective. Very dynamic, pushing the boundaries all the time, up and down, changing the tempos. Great track, great finish, great song, really well built and really well delivered. This is it. Once Awake, Bridgeburner, once again out October 2nd as a self-release. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the single. They've released plenty of singles. Check them out and let me know your thoughts on them in the comment section. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.